It looks like we've mastered the basics of working with an activity, so let's start something more serious. We'll base the further part of our course on the Todo Expert application. It's a simple task management application which has a number of interesting features. First of all, it handles multiple users. This means that its users may log in and log out from the application, and the data they saved so far will be stored between logins. This is possible thanks to using the Android built-in SQLite database. It's one of the things we'll try to illustrate using this application. The data downloaded to the database is downloaded from the server thanks to the synchronization feature. It may take place automatically or be imposed by the user. In case it takes place automatically, the user is informed about the changes using the notification mechanism. The notification bar starts to display an information that new tasks to be viewed have appeared. Another technology which we'll present using this application is the possibility of translating. Android has a pretty good mechanism which allows the automatic translation of applications. We'll use a translation from English to Polish. Depending on whether we start the application on a device with a Polish or English system installed, the interface will be displayed in the corresponding version. Our sample application is also a backend. In our case, I didn't want to create a new backend, so I used the parse service. It's a mobile backend as a service, which is available for free for developers up to a certain limit. It allows the creation of an entire backend without the need to write code. Basic things like saving and reading data from tables is carried out automatically by the relevant API. Communication with parse may take place in several ways. One of them is API REST. The API shared by parse is a perfect example of how such an API should be implemented and shared. Thanks to this, we'll be able to illustrate a typical example of communication using HTTP, where the data is exchanged based on the JSON protocol. An additional option, useful for testing the application, is access to the data browser. It's actually a browser for the data included in parse. It works in a way which closely resembles PHPMyAdmin. We have a table where we can see the contents of particular tables. Thanks to the possibility of connecting with parse from the level of JavaScript, I was able to create a simple web interface which we'll use to modify data as well as to create accounts and log into them. It will allow us to modify data even before we're able to modify it from the application level. Thanks to this, we'll be able to test certain features which are not yet available in the application. Now let's see what our application will look like once it's finished. Here is the architecture of our application. The application includes three main views. Three main activities responsible for login, displaying the task list, and adding a new task. Each of these activities has a specific task and communicates with the other components in a different way. In case of the activity for login, The data will be saved in shared preferences. It's nothing more than a file present in the file system to which we can save certain data. There we'll save the data about whether the user logged in order to be later able to check which user is currently logged in the application, which will allow us to communicate with the server. Data exchange between the activity for adding and the list activity takes place via the database. The data we want to display on the list will be downloaded from the database, and the moment a task is created, it'll be sent to the database. Because of this, both activities communicate with the database. A modification of the database from the server level takes place with the use of services. These services act in the background. Their task is to download data from the server and modify the database so that it always reflects the current version present on the server. The moment our service notices that new data has appeared, it informs our activity by sending the relevant broadcast. The activity will receive a broadcast using a broadcast receiver. This mechanism is pretty often encountered in Android, which is why we'll demonstrate it on the basis of our communication when refreshing data. The user interface itself looks very simple. We have three main activities. The first one has a place for entering the data needed to log in and the login button. The second one is just a task list with the possibility of selecting the completed tasks and an appropriate set of options in the action bar. The third activity includes places for entering the data of the third task and the option of adding it. Now that we know what we want to get, let's get down to work.